is Jamie Magridge. Welcome to Jamie's Craft Table. Today I'm going to make 3 cards, simple stamping to avid stamping. So I have a simple, a casual, and an avid stamper card using the Boho Indigo product medley. I didn't end up using the ribbons. I did use some of the paper. You can also get a refill for the paper. And I used a few of the dies and this stamp set. I used this stamp, this stamp, this stamp, and this stamp. And these are the 3 dies that I used. This cuts out the this one cuts out the flowers, and then this is a standalone die. Okay. And I use a couple pieces of the designer series paper. It also comes with a lot of die cuts, and I used a few of those. So let's get started. I'm going to start with a simple card, and it's truly a simple stamping card. No layers, just a simple card. It's a piece of thick whisper white, 5.5 by 8.5, scored and folded at 4 1/4. And I'm going to open it up just because it makes it easier for me to stamp if it's flat. I also need a piece of scratch paper. I think I'll just bring in my Post-it note and use that. And Night of Navy ink and Old Olive ink. Those are the only inks I'm using today. I'm going to open up the Night of Navy. For this card, I'm just using the Night of Navy. And the first thing I'm going to do is ink up this vase. You don't need to put pressure on it. Basically, just set it down on the ink pad, pick it up, set it down again until you see that you have really good coverage. It stamps beautifully. Okay, this is the front of the card. So I want to stamp this about 1 inch from the bottom and 1 inch from the left side. I'll go ahead and stamp it. See, isn't that beautiful? Okay, now I'm going to bring in this one. It's that foliage. I don't know if you can see it. I'm going to ink that up. Then I'm going to stamp off on my scratch paper. And then I'm going to bring it to here, and I'm going to stamp these foliage in the top of this vase. I want it to be stamped off so that I can stamp the sentiment and you can still read it. And I'm leaving it for a minute so all that ink that's on there can be absorbed into the paper. Okay. Something on there. Let's see if I can get it off for the next one. Okay, now I'm going to bring in the sentiment, a bunch of birthday love to you. Ink that up in the Night of Navy. And I'm going to stamp that over here. There we go, that's card number 1. The one we just made together. Here's the one I did previously. Okay. Now we'll move on to card number 2. This is the casual stamper one. And we have the same card to start with. It's thick, 5.5 by 8.5, scored and folded at 4 1/4. Oh, I know what I did forget to do on this one. Come in with those 3 flowers. I inked those up, stamped them off, and then stamped them down here in this corner. Okay. Okay, so on this is the card base, 5.5 by 8.5, scored and folded at 4 1/4. I have a scrap of Whisper White. I have a strip of the Designer Series paper. It's one of those embossed ones. I don't know if you can see the embossing on it. It is 3/4 of an inch long, and it just needs to be at least, say, 3.5 inches maybe. Okay. I have some flowers that I've already die cut out, but I'll show you how I did that. I have a piece of Whisper White, which is 2 3/4 by 4 1/4. Another piece of Whisper White, which is 4 by 5 1/4. And I have a piece of Night of Navy, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And this is just my scratch paper. I'm going to use a different one. So I'm just going to use the scratch instead of that 2 3/4 by 4 1/4 piece. Okay, so I'm going to bring in these little flowers. I'm going to ink them up, and on this scratch paper I'm going to stamp them. And cut them out. Now on my original, I fussy cut them out because when I made this card I didn't have my die cutting machine with me. So I fussy cut them out. But today I'm going to go ahead and use the die. So I'm going to bring in my die. I'm going to line it up. And for this I recommend taping it down because you don't want it to move. And then I'm going to run it through my die cutting machine. And for the sake of time, I already did that. Just to make this video a tiny bit shorter. Put the die away so I don't lose it. Okay. Now for the rest of the card, we're going to take this Whisper White piece, which is 4 by 5 1/4. And we're going to start the same way we did before. We're going to start with the vase. We're going to stamp it about 1 inch up and 1 inch over. Okay, now I do need to bring in my Stampin' Chamois or Stampin' Scrub to clean off the leaves, because now I'm going to stamp them with the Old Olive ink. Again, you don't need to push your stamp down hard into the pad, you just need to gently tap it on there. Basically, I'm just setting it on there and picking it up. Okay, so now I'm going to stamp this right here in this top of this vase. Awesome. And then I'm going to come in with that same sentiment as before. And the Night of Navy ink this time. And I'm going to stamp this up in this corner up here. Perfect. Okay, now I'm going to come in with some dimensionals. I'm going to put some dimensionals on the back of these flowers. Use the little ones if you wanted to. Take those backs off. And those flowers are going to get placed here. Strip of the Boho Indigo Designer Series paper. It's going to go down here, and I want to cut a little angle on it, so I'm going to Bring in my snips. This one might have been narrower. Yeah, I think it's supposed to be 1/2 inch. So let me trim this down and I'll be right back. That looks better. Okay, now I'm going to snip one end at an angle like this. And then we're going to glue that down here at the bottom of this so it looks like the vase is sitting on it. I'm going to go ahead and use my Stampin' Seal. To be about there, I think. Okay, and I'm going to turn it over. I'm going to trim off that extra. So the strip should have been 1/2 inch, not 3/4. Okay, 1/2 inch. And then this is going to get mounted onto the Night of Navy. And the Night of Navy was 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. We're going to mount it onto the Night of Navy piece. There's going to be about 1/8 inch border because it's 1/4 inch larger than the piece we stamped. No, don't move it down yet. Line up 3 edges if we can. And set it down. Alright. Okay, then this is going to completely cover the front of the card. So line it up on the fold. Stand them both up. There's card number 2. There's the one we just made together. Here's the one I did previously. Now you could add some bling on here if you wanted, but I didn't. Okay, so here's the first card. Here's the second card. And I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing on the inside. This one that I did on the first one, I'm going to just stamp these flowers down here in this bottom after I stamp them off. Okay. Alright, so now card number 3 is this one. I have my card base, 5 1/2 by 8 1/2, scored and folded at 4 1/4. Ooh, my finger. I have a scrap of Night of Navy, which I die cut this branch out of, and I've done that previously, so you didn't have to sit here and watch me do it. I've got one of these little flowers that comes in the kit. This is the larger one. I think I used a smaller one on the other. So there's my little die cut. I have some of the die cuts that came in the kit. They're gold foil. I don't know if you could see that. And this little leaf also has the gold foiling on it. I have a label, and this is cut from a piece of the designer series paper. It's just a strip of this design that I cut on either side of the design. I have another piece of that designer series paper, which is 3 3/4 by 5. That's the same paper that I used for that strip. I have a piece of Night of Navy, which is 4 by 5 1/4. And oh, this is 3 3/4 by 5. And then I've already stamped and die cut out the vase, but let me show you how I did that. I got a scrap of Whisper White. That's not the white. What did I do with my scrap? It's over here. Okay. Well, let's move all these off of here so they're not in the way. I brought in the vase like we did on the other ones. I stamped it, ink it up well. And I stamped it. And then I brought in the die that matches it. And I recommend taping it down so it doesn't move on you. Nothing more frustrating than going to cut something out and ruining it at that point. Okay, so I go ahead and cut that out. And then end up with this. Okay. Now I'm also, since I have the stamp here, I'm going to use a different sentiment. This time I'm going to use Thank You. I take the Night of Navy ink and stamp it on this little label right in the center of it. Alright, let's try this again. Light, 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 light. There we go. Straight down. Let it sit there for a minute. Straight up, perfect. Okay. Wash my finger off. Put that aside. Okay. And that's all the stamping for this one. This one's pretty, just a bunch of different layers. So let's put this ink away. And this piece here, let's label these, put these together first. The DSP and the Boho Indigo, again that's the embossed piece, is going to get attached to the 4 by 5 1/4 inch piece of Night of Navy. And there's going to be that 1/8 of an inch border because it's a 1/4 of an inch larger than the white piece, or it's ivory colored. And this is going to get mounted to the front of our card. I've learned to use the seal. It's, I think I was trying too hard. As long as you get it started, it comes out pretty easy. And this is going to have that same 1/8 of an inch border because again the Night of Navy's 1/4 inch smaller than the front of the card. Again, line up 3 sides, and set it down. I still like the green glue better. It gives me that wiggle room. Now this piece, I don't need all of it. I probably should have done it before I put that down, but I always forget a step, don't I? Go ahead and add glue to this. Just wiped off, that's good. And a little bit on this end. Okay, so I'm going to put this, let's see, about a 1/4 inch, a little bit more from the edge there, straight across the card. Sharp straight. Snip it off here. Use wet glue and I'm still getting sticky. Alright. Alright, now come in with dimensionals and our little pot, our vase. Put a couple dimensionals on the back of it. Backs off, and I'll go ahead and sit that in this vicinity over here. It's the same positioning as on the other one. Okay, this piece here. Glue on the back of it, set it in the vase. And this blue piece, I'm going to use the wet glue, it's a little easier. It helps if I have one that is opened. This one down in there too. Okay. And bring in our flower. Put a dimensional on the back of it, right in the center. It's going to go right here. One of these little flowers is going to go in the center of it. I think the easiest thing to put these with is a glue dot, so let's do that. Glue dot right in the center. Okay. Turn that a little. I guess I won't worry about it. The bead on that's off center, so I was going to try and move it a little bit, but it's alright, that works. Something's bugging me here. I've got to get it to move. There we go. Alright, now the sentiment. I'm just going to put a dimensional on the one side because this side would be sitting on top of the vase. So I just need a dimensional there. A little touch of glue on this corner. back off. I should have done that first. And this is going to go over here. So where do I want it? I'll go ahead and put it where I did before. Okay, and there's card number 3. Here's the one I did previously. So I've got 3 different cards. There's this. Very simple. Well, thanks for joining me at Jamie's Craft Table. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I hope you can find a little bit of time to play with some stamps, ink, and paper.